My guest this week has just released a new autobiography called Karma. Love the title. And by the way, I've got to say, George, I love the picture.
Yeah, I know. Somebody was like, that's not you. And I was like, yeah, it is me.
It looks super cool.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to Tracks of My Years. We're going to chat loads more about Karma as we go on over the week. Well, let's start with track number 1, which comes from the Beatles. And Here Comes the Sun.
Here comes the sun.
I guess, obviously, you're old enough to remember the Beatles.
I am. I caught the tail end of sort of their massive period in the 60s, but because of George Harrison, you know, its connection to this beautiful song. And, you know, I mean, people always say, who's your favourite Beatle? I mean, I like them all, but George Harrison, for me, was one of my favourites because of the whole spiritual thing. You know, he gave Back to the Dancing Man to the Hare Krishnas in London, and, yeah, he was just a great guy.
But clearly, when you first heard this song, you weren't aware of George and his Hare Krishna then, were you?
I was aware of the Beatles' interest in the Maharaji, and, you know, I was always, you know, interested in that and looking at that. But, yeah, too young to really know what it was, you know. But when you're a teenager and you look up to artists, don't you? Whatever they do, you kind of go, oh, that's interesting. I want to go to India. You know, I want to do that. I want to wear those clothes.
And you were one of 5 children born to Irish parents.
6.
6 children, sorry.
You're shrinking my family. In the Sunday Times, I said I have 3 brothers, which is, you know, obviously a big typo. So there's 6 of us in total.
Yeah.
5 boys and 1 girl.
Right. And did a lot of your musical influence come from them, or did it come from your parents?
My older brother, Richard, was the one that was, you know, with the records. And, of course, he was a bit older, so he was allowed out. So he could go out clubbing, and he had access to those things long before I did. So I used to listen to a lot of music through his bedroom door. When he was out, I'd go and...
Why through his bedroom door?
Because it was locked. It was locked.
He wouldn't let you in?
No, he was, like, far too old and cool to hang out with me. He was
What's the age difference?
Like 3 years.
Okay.
You know, when you're a kid, it's a big difference, you know. And, you know, he had his mates and, you know, he was into different things. And I used to hear Bowie through the bedroom door. So whenever we went out, I'd go in and play with his records and get beat up when he came home.
No. How tough was it for you to just choose 10 songs?
It's always difficult because whenever I get asked what's my favourite Bowie song or what's my favourite T-Rex song, and I mean, there's too many.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a songwriter, so I love songs more than perhaps I do artists or bands. I'm much more into the writing than I'm into the sort of whole who someone is, you know. I like good writing. So to me, like, I don't think all good writing is in the past, but it's definitely different now. It's a different time, you know.
Different way of doing it as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing the same thing. It's all just words, pitch and rhythm, so there's nothing unique about it. But I think it's all about the person as well, why someone's saying something. It's as much about the person, how they look, the social context of that person. Everything about that is what makes it unique, because there's nothing really unique about songwriting or singing, but it's the sort of the intention of the artist, I think, is what makes it special.
And I guess what was going on at that time in their life.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't sort of, you know, Bowie obviously is an interesting one, because every time Bowie made an album, you know, it was like such a departure. Every record was different. And it usually took a couple of days before you went, oh my God, it's the best thing I've ever heard. But while I like the 70s, because the radio was insane.
Yeah.
You know, you had the Goombay Dance Band, the Sex Pistols, the Wombles, you know, Maria Callas. It was all Cliff Richard. It was all going on at the same time. And that's kind of how my head is when it comes to music. You know, I can jump from, you know, a house track to a Dolly Parton track to a, you know, Bowie, you know, rock and roll stuff. I just like it all, you know.
All right. Next track, B.J. Thomas, brilliant song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Amazing scene from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
There's a real interesting connection to Hare Krishna, because the man that started the movement was called Prabhupada, and in his room in LA, he had a little music box, and when you opened it, it played Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, and it was his favourite song. And I remember hearing it in the room, you know, went to visit the room many, many years ago, and I was like, I love the fact that he loves this song, because it's such a sweet, innocent, pure song. And, you know, you can't not like it, really. But I love the connection to, you know, the sort of 60s. And
so you don't remember it from the movie?
Oh, I remember it from the movie, but, I knew the song. But once I remember opening this little music box and it playing, I wasn't expecting it to play that. I was like, oh, my God. It's interesting when somebody so spiritual is into something that's, so pop in a way. It's quite a funny connection. So, yeah, I love the song.
Raindrops are falling on my head. Nothing's worrying.
Tracks of My Years, Boy George is our guest all this week. And the next song comes from Gladys Knight and the Pips, Help Me Make It Through the Night. Beautiful song.
Take the ribbon from my hair through the night.
I love Gladys Knight's voice. I've sung with Gladys Knight, Culture Club.
How was that?
With her. It was amazing. What
was she like?
Beautiful. Very beautiful. And I've been to see her many times in concert. And, I went to see her in the 80s when I was first in Culture Club. I went to a gig and, stood by the side of the stage. And for me, she's one of my favourite all-time singers of all time. I love her voice. There's a surreal kind of laughter in her voice. It's so beautiful. And this song, I used to play this, in my bedroom with all the lights out, very dramatic. It's one of those hard things to choose a Gladys Knight and the Pips song that I don't love. Yeah. This is one of my favourites.
Where did your love of fashion come from?
The fashion thing probably came a little bit from Elvis, a little bit from Bowie, Mark Bolan, Steve Harley, Cockney Rebel, just pop music really, but rock and roll. I used to love that whole style of the 50s. And then obviously got into glam rock when Bowie came along and then punk. You just jump from one to the other. My mum used to love the sort of soul boy look. And then punk came along and she was to stand in front of the door trying to stop me going out of the house,
Were you dressing up as a kid?
As much as I could. Whenever I put something on that was a little bit too loud and go towards the front door, I'd hear my dad go, "Get in here!" And sort of, I was stopped a lot from.
So what would be considered a little bit too loud?
My auntie Josie sent my mum up a box of clothes, and in that box was a Lurex catsuit. Why she sent me this? Mum would never wear it. And I was like, I would. And I tried to go out into the street in it, and my dad, I could hear the voice, "Get in here!" So I was stopped, but there was a point when I couldn't be stopped.
Yeah.
Like 16, that was it.
So 16, that was it. The heck with it, I'm going to wear whatever I want to wear.
I wore what I wanted, and, it was, they were a little bit horrified to start with, but they got over it.
You worked at the legendary Blitz Club for a while, didn't you, in the cloakroom? For anyone who doesn't know of the Blitz, just describe what it was like there.
Well, it was a really small wine bar, and every week all these kind of extroverts, exhibitionists would go there and dance to...
Did you have to be an extrovert to get in?
Oh, yeah. He turned away Mick Jagger. He turned people away. Steve Strange turned away Mick Jagger from the club because he wasn't dressed right. There was an absolute dress code. It was like going to a costume ball, like a Viennese costume ball. Everybody was dressed up. And if you didn't get past the door, it was devastating. If you hadn't quite pulled off the look. It was terrible, really, because I don't really like that kind of attitude. But... you made an effort to get in. I suppose, in a way, Steve felt like if you went to the Queen's Tea Party, you wouldn't turn up in jeans and a T-shirt. So if you come into the Blitz, make an effort. And I think he was right in a way, because if you're in a club where everyone's dressed up, you don't feel out of place. But if there's a load of casuals at the bar, it can cause trouble. So it was really a place where people like us could go without getting hassled.
And was it anything goes, or is it one particular style that everybody used to dress?
It was kind of punky. There was a lot of rockabillys and stuff. You had to have a look. You had to look like you were living it, not just dressed up for the night. It had to be convincing.
And how come you were on the cloakroom? Was this a way of trying to break into the fashion and music industry by working there, or was it just for fun?
No, Steve gave me the job. I was living in a squat. I was on the dole, so there wasn't a lot of money. So anything you could do to raise more money, you would do. And Steve decided he wanted everyone in the club to look good. So I got the job in the cloakroom, and it was a great place to be because people had to come and see you when they arrived and when they left. Sometimes without their coats.
Next up is Elvis, a hero of yours?
Absolutely. This song, it's a Willie Nelson song, but the Elvis version is just amazing. And again, it's a it's a really simple song, but the sentiment is so beautiful. You know, apparently, I used to hear that it was written by Elvis for Priscilla, but it was actually written by Willie Nelson. Mm-hmm. And it's just a beautiful song. It says everything it needs to say in a very simple way. And
you took part in a tribute to Elvis, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I did Teddy Bear.
Yeah.
I should have done that, really. It was on my mind.
OK, here's Elvis Presley and Always on My Mind.
Maybe I didn't treat you
Elvis Presley, Always on My Mind. You're listening to Tracks of My Years with Boy George, and Alice Cooper is next.
Alice Cooper plays golf. You know, he's the sweetest man you could ever meet. But in the 70s...
What's wrong with playing golf?
No, I'm just saying, when I was a kid, that was the one gig I wasn't allowed to go to. I used to go to everything at Lewis Schmodium, but Alice Cooper, no way. There were like priests and nuns outside giving out leaflets, telling people not to go in.
So your parents were forbidding you?
I wasn't even allowed to go and hang out the backstage door, because I often used to go... If I didn't have tickets, I'd just go and hang out the back door. And, you know, I saw everyone, you know, it was amazing. But this particular night, I wasn't allowed out of the house. And then years later, when I obviously got famous, I met Alice Cooper in Phoenix, Arizona. And he was so sweet, such a nice guy, you know. And
completely opposite to his persona.
Yeah, he was playing a role. You know, he was playing a role, and it was, and he did it brilliantly, and still does it brilliantly. But it was funny meeting him and then finding out he played golf.
What's wrong with playing golf? I play golf.
No, I'm just saying you don't expect Alice Cooper to be playing golf. It's like, it's sort of incongruous, isn't it?
Yeah. So that song, Elected, would have come out whilst you were in your teens, just about to hit your teens. What was going on in your life back then?
I remember seeing the video on Top of the Pops, because videos were quite a new thing. It was like a film of him, you know, in the top hat and the Rolls Royce, and the lyrics are so good. We're all going to rot to the rules I've made. You know, I told you I've always been cruel. It's such a great lyric. You know, it wasn't like a sort of obvious pop lyric. You know, and I think in the 70s there were people like Alice Cooper and Bowie and Mark Bolan that were pushing the sort of envelope lyrically. And I definitely am a lyric person. People that say, oh, no one cares about the lyrics, there's something wrong with them. The lyrics are everything.
Do you listen to the lyric before the melody?
When I write, I often write the words first.
Right.
Because if you've got something to say, you'll find a way to say it. You can sing anything to any melody within reason. You know what I mean? It's. I know a lot of people do concentrate on trying to write the melody first, but I think it restricts you with the lyrics if you are only thinking about the melody. Sometimes they just happen naturally. You go, oh, it all works together. But as a rule, I think, find what you want to say, and then you'll find a melody.
When did you realise you could sing and you had a great voice?
I used to go and sing at the old people's home around the corner with like my friends, and we used to go and do like Roll Out the Barrel. I don't know, I was like 9 or 10, you know, so I was very precocious.
Yeah.
Not quite a stage school kid, but I definitely would have gone to stage school if I'd been allowed, you know. I used to run home from school to watch Junior Showtime, and I was obsessed with all the TV shows where people sang and danced, you know, Pauline Quirk, all those kind of characters, and Bonnie Langford. You know, I rushed home from school to see those shows. And I think just because of where I lived geographically, you know, the fact there were 6 kids, there was no money. So my ideas of going to stage school were like, that ain't going to happen.
I never realised that for a fleeting moment you were in Bow Wow Wow.
I was, yeah. I mean, literally for the blink of an eye. It was about...
So how did that happen? That was your first singing gig, was it?
Yeah, I knew Matthew Ashman, who was the guitarist, because his girlfriend, Gabriella, was my best friend. And so we hung out a lot. And I was friends with this guy called Philip Salon, who...
London legend,
always used to get everyone to sing. We were always singing. And Matthew was like, you can really sing. I would love you to be in Bow Wow Wow. Maybe we could have you as an additional singer. Malcolm got me into the band to wind up Annabella.
Really?
She was 15. She wasn't behaving herself.
Yeah.
He wanted to threaten her.
Yeah.
So he got me. I went in for a couple of gigs and got fired.
And is it true that you heard you got fired by reading it in Melody Maker?
I saw my picture in Melody Maker with... well, actually, it wasn't even Annabella. It was another girl.
Yeah.
They got it wrong. They sold George and Annabella. It was actually a girl called Scottish Linda. And I read that I was, no longer in the band. And I was like, all right. But it kind of gave me the the drive to start Culture Club.
Yeah.
I mean, it started out as I wanted to get revenge on Malcolm for not having me in the band, so it was great that he fired me.
And what was your name back then?
Lieutenant Lush.
How? Why?
Malcolm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Malcolm was so surrealist. I mean, I sat in his flat in Queensway and watched him write songs. You know, Malcolm was writing lyrics in front of me and teaching me songs, and it was quite an impressive experience at, like, 19 years old to have this incredible Svengali. Obviously, we didn't know who he was then. Mm-hmm. It was the beginning of who he was, but looking back, I kind of really treasure that experience. You know, it's so mad, like thinking, this guy's like, we're going to call you Lieutenant Lush. All right.
And those 2 gigs that you did on stage, were you, like, full of confidence? Were you nervous?
I was absolutely terrified. The first gig was at the Rainbow Theatre in Finsbury Park, and I came on in the encore instead of Annabella. So Malcolm pushed me on stage, and I sang a song called Cast Iron Arm by Peanuts Wilson, which is an old 50s sort of song. The most ridiculous song, Don't Mess With Me, because I've got a cast iron arm. And Malcolm thought it was hilarious, and the crowd booed. They were like, where's Annabella? Why is he on?
No.
But once I'd gone on, regardless of the booing, I was like, I love it here. Yeah. I thought, right, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah.
So we mentioned over the last couple of days David Bowie, who you're massively influenced by.
1,000%. I mean, I'm influenced by great writing. We just played It Was On My Mind. It's so simple. I think it's really difficult to say something that is powerful and simple. So you're always looking for that as a writer.
So David Bowie, Boys Keep Swinging. Why this song?
Well, this video, when it came out, was so outrageous. You know, Bowie had done so much in the 70s in the sense of, you know, being outrageous. And then he comes along again and does this song where he's in drag and he's, like, dressed up as Marlene Dietrich. And it was just bold, you know, and I like the whole message of it. And, you know, I mean, obviously, again, it's difficult to find a favourite Bowie song because it changes every day. But this is up there.
Have you met him?
Oh, of course.
A lot? Do you become friends?
Quite a few times. I wouldn't say friends. I was always a fan. I mean, I spoke to him on the phone a few times when I lived in New York, so I had his number. So I guess, you know, we were vaguely friends. But it was very difficult for me to be pally-pally with him because I was such a fan. I sat outside his house, you know.
Really?
Yeah, when I was 10. And I saw him many, many times in concert. I mean, in the end, you know, he was very sweet to me. And when I met him, he was everything I wanted him to be. There was nothing disappointing about him. He was funny, he was charming, he was intelligent, he was kind. I brought my friend to dinner with him. He was so nice to my friend, who is also like an insane Bowie fan. So I walked away from it every time I met him just going, he was exactly what I wanted him to be, just absolutely beautiful. And
he was your first gig that you ever went to, is that right?
Yeah, my first big concert was Ziggy Stardust at Lewishmodian, and I went on my own.
You were 11?
11 and a half. I was almost 12.
Oh, sorry.
11
and a half. But how were you allowed to go to a concert on your own at 11 and a half?
My father had a row with my grandmother. I did everything I could to charm my dad. My dad, if you behaved yourself, was one of those people you could definitely get him around your finger and he'd give you money. And I convinced him to buy me a ticket. I had no bus fare. It was like literally, I'll buy you the ticket. And you remember in those days, you bought the ticket 6 months before the gig.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, Christmas. It was in May, the gig. So, you know, you had the ticket. You had to be careful you didn't upset your dad during those months because the ticket would get ripped up. So when the gig came, I had my own ticket. I had no one to go with. I went on my own, borrowed my brother Richard's clothes, and I made friends at the gig.
Brilliant. And what was that gig like?
Life-changing.
In what way?
Well, just, you know, it wasn't
I guess the whole audience was dressed up, were they?
Yeah, also what he was wearing on stage, the songs, you know, it was just very powerful. I mean, even when I look back at it now, I still get that same excitement when you see the Ziggy live concert. There was nothing like it then, and there's been nothing like it since. I think Bowie was one of the great originals. Whatever he did, it kind of, even when he stole ideas, because we all nick things from people, he just made it his own. And I think that's the trick with, you know, sort of ideas and looks and whatever it may be, is to make it look like you thought of it first.
Heaven loves you. Boys keep swinging. Boys always working.
David Bowie and Boys Keep Swinging. It's Tracks in My Years. And time now for a bit of madness. And it must be love.
I never thought I'd miss you half as much.
Why this song?
Well, I love Madness. I mean, great British band. During that period when they were releasing singles one after the other, it was like, oh my God, everything they did was great. And I just love this version of this Labby Sifri song. I love the way that Sugg sings it. It's very like, almost like classical British movie. Yeah. You know, it's like really bull beef and carrots, but he just does it in this kind of deadpan way that, you know, sort of geezers could listen to it and go, oh yeah, I like this song. I'm not that I'm a geezer, but I'm just thinking that, you know, you shouldn't be able to cover a song like this and make it brilliant, but they did. I just love this version. I like the original as well, but I always go to this version.
And I love the fact that they're still smashing it today.
Oh, absolutely,
Their
yeah.
new
Absolutely.
album is
the new
brilliant
single was
as well.
amazing.
Yeah. So the song came out the year that Culture Club formed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I used to see Suggs at parties, you know, before I got famous, you know, so I'd see them out.
I can't imagine someone like Suggs dressing up, say, to go to the Blitz.
No, but he was a skinhead, so you'd see them. It was like style.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody was a skinhead, they stood out. If somebody was a mod. I remember the first time I saw Paul Weller on the corner of Wardour Street. He wasn't famous, but he was cool. He had a blue suit on, he had the hair. So in those days, you had to embody whatever you were wearing, and you had to be convincing. And, you know, skinheads were terrifying, but Madness were friendly skinheads. They were pop skinheads.
How did Culture Club get together? You were briefly in Bow Wow Wow. You wanted to get your revenge on Malcolm McLaren and prove to him that you could make it.
I was DJing in a club called Planets with Jeremy Healy. We were both DJs at Friday nights. Mikey Craig, who's the bass player in Culture Club, had seen my picture in Melody Maker. Both Mikey and John had auditioned for Adam and the Ants, so they knew that something was happening. Guys in makeup, you know, this fashion thing, they knew something was happening. So Mikey had seen me and he thought, he looks good, I'm going to go and meet him. He walked into the club, came up to me and said, oh, I'm Mikey, I play bass, I heard you got kicked out of Bow Wow Wow, do you want to start a band? I was like, yep. And I took my best friend Claire over to his house in Hammersmith, to his parents' house the next day, I think, to hear him play bass. Because I didn't really know much about bass. You know, my friend was a bit more of an expert. So I said, you come with me and you can tell me if he can actually play. I mean, it's very silly and naive now when I think about it. But it was the beginning. You know, Mikey was the first person I met.
And then you got the other guys together.
Yeah, we had a few kind of people that were, you know, part of the band in the early days. And then eventually I met John. I'd seen John on the King's Road. I knew he'd been in bands. He'd been in The Clash. He'd been in London. So I knew he could play. And I don't know, I got his phone number. I just found someone that knew him and got his number, rang him up, had this insane phone call with John. And so I said, have you got a drum kit? And he goes, yeah, I'm a drummer. You have to have a drum kit if you're a drummer. I was like, okay, that's good. Don't have to buy one then. That was really when it all started. We got together in this place in Elephant and Castle on a Sunday, and we rehearsed, and it was all very naive. I wanted to be Susan the Banshees. So the original stuff that we did was very goth. It was very guitar-y. And John came along and he was like, he didn't like it. He thought it was dreary. He thought the sort of punk thing was done, and he said, we need colour, we need some, you know, we need it to be more vibrant. So Culture Club sort of became this weird hybrid of all these different ideas. And to be honest, I think all my favourite music sounds like everything. No, it sounds like everything's in there. Yeah. And I think Bowie was really good at sort of taking disco and putting some weird aspect on it. And I think it's that sort of music I love. That's a bit like, oh, what is this? It sounds like that, but it feels like this.
How were the early gigs?
They were amazing. I mean, we had, because I had a shop in Carnaby Street called The Foundry where I used to sell all the clothes we wore. But that was before we started the band. We were just selling the clothes to sell them. And then we put the band in the clothes, and we had like kids that used to come in the shop and they'd follow us. We had a sort of cult following, you know, because we weren't signed or anything. And then once we got the deal and got on TV overnight, like overnight.
It was that Top of the Pops, wasn't it?
Overnight. We literally the next gig we went to was just full of girls in dreadlocks and hats and same makeup and wearing the same clothes, and it was like unbelievable. It was like mind-blowing.
Talk to me about that first Top of the Pops appearance, because you didn't get much notice that you were going to be on,
The
did
night
you?
before, we got a phone call saying, would you like to be on Top of the Pops? I was like, it's not even a question. And I spent the whole night, like, kind of just working out what I was going to wear, like, changing my mind. And
How many different outfits were you deciding?
oh, several. But I ended up wearing bare feet because of Sandy Shaw.
Yeah.
Because I love Sandy Shaw, and I've seen her on TV with bare feet. So
Yeah.
my little tribute to Sandy was wearing no shoes and socks.
And how nervous were you during that performance?
I think when you've never done anything like that before, it all feels very exciting. You know, you're kind of only thinking about the impact you're going to have. I was just totally fixated on what people would say when they saw me, because I knew there was going to be a reaction. I knew that.
So you knew that was no surprise.
Well, I wanted that reaction as well. I mean, I was banking on it. I was like, because, you know, if you go on Top of the Pops, you know, what do you remember when you watch people on Top of the Pops? Who stands out? Kate Bush, you know, T-Rex. You know, when you see someone that really stands out.
Boy George.
Boy George, so I was following that tradition of Roxy Music, you know, all the sort of bands like, oh yeah, they look different. And so I knew that people were going to really react to me, and they did. It was amazing.
Did you love those Culture Club days?
Looking
back now.
No, I mean, you know what? I think I don't regret those days, but I enjoy myself much more now when I'm working, when I'm on stage. It's a very different experience. And back then, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know that I could just change my mind about the way I felt. I didn't know I could just breathe it out. You know, I didn't know I didn't have to react to things in the way that I did.
Yeah.
Because I went to my default setting. But now I'm older and, you know, I've done a lot of work on myself. I can talk myself out of reacting in a negative way. I mean, I don't really get in the moods that I used to get in. You know, I don't... People, I'm doing panto right now, and they say, oh, you're so energetic, because I think energy is a choice. Just like your attitude's a choice, you know. I try to be nice to myself to start with. If I'm nicer to myself, I'm going to be nicer to everyone else. So it's very simple.
Your next track, one of my favourite bands from the 80s, Talk Talk, brilliant song, It's My Life. Why this?
Well, this song, It's My Life, is such a kind of classic. You know, I loved all their music, actually, but, you know, this particular one, it's a song everybody loves. Love his voice, love the production. It just is one of those unique tracks. It really stands out, and just, yeah, it's a timeless song.
Funny how I found myself.
Talk Talk, It's My Life, and it's Tracks in My Years with Boy George. And Friday's song now is by Furniture and Brilliant Mind.
I'm at the stage of their brilliant minds.
Love this song. When it came out, I was in a pretty bad place, actually, so hearing that You Must Be Out of Your Brilliant Mind was a reminder to straighten myself out a bit. But yeah, I just love the whole video, the bass. I was obsessed. There was a girl bass player. I used to, you know, be obsessed with this record. And then I met them as well, and they were like, because I used their song on Desert Island Discs. I played this as one of my favourite songs, and they were really impressed. I love the punkiness of it. It's kind of that mix of it. It reminds me a little bit of the Slits. It's got that kind of punky, Bauhausy sort of. It's a real hybrid, but yeah, just a brilliant song.
So you just published Karma, which is your third memoir. So clearly you still have plenty left to say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this isn't a definitive book. I will write other stuff, you know, because
I mean, there's
like,
more stories?
Yeah, totally. Well, you've got to create more stories. I've just been talking to a 100-year-old lady in the lobby out there, amazing war veteran, you know, and you just think, wow, you know, as an artist, you can't stay still. You've got to always, I think, try and transcend other people's ideas of who you are, you know, and that's something that I'm very excited about doing right now. You know, I want to release a lot of vinyl stuff. I'm working on this deal with a vinyl plant because I want to put out more physical records because...
New music or old music?
Oh, new music. All new music. But...
what sort of style?
Everything. everything from dance to rock and roll to, you know, 50s, everything to electronic stuff. You know, I've been working on some tracks that are very like Soft Cell and the Human League, stuff that I loved at the time that I didn't do because I was in Culture Club. So I never really got into the sort of Depeche sound, although I love it. And yeah, I feel like there's no rules anymore. You can do what you want, you know. I've got my sort of DJ life, which is one thing. So there are certain people that know me for dance music.
You talk very honestly in the book about your brushes with other celebs. Do you worry about offending people or not?
Not if they're not worried about offending me in the first place. If they've offended me in the first place, I mean, listen, even if I've said something rude about someone, if I meet them, I'll always be friendly, you know, because I'm always willing to have my mind changed about anyone, you know. But reputations are earned by the person. No one ever says Dolly Parton's rude because she's not, you know. And as a rule, most people don't say I'm rude because I'm not. I used to be. I used to be obnoxious. But I got over it, you know, because I realised that those relationships you have with people, like the public, if you can make someone walk away happy, do you know what I mean? Yeah. The energy around that is just amazing. And it's actually easier. It's easier. I'll never forget when I meet someone famous if they're not rude. If they're rude to me, I'll never forget it. And some people I forgive because I love them. There's certain people that get a free pass. Morrissey, Prince.
It's funny that you say that. When I started in radio and I was a very nervous young DJ, my first ever interview was one of your idols, Susie Sue, with the Banshees. And it was the most horrific interview I've ever had the pleasure of doing. He's got Susie Sue tattoo on his arm. Oh no!
I mean, I love Susie, but she
gave me hell. And so you're talking about remembering things. To this day, I will always remember that interview as being so awkward and so difficult.
And that's the thing, you know. I mean, I think one of the great things I love is that I've got this reputation, and it's really just not who I am. But maybe it was in the past, whatever. And I think the Susie thing, punk rock, everyone was rude. I remember the first time I met her, she sneered at me. In fact, every time I've met her, she sneered at me. But I'm a massive fan, as you can see. And, you know, there are certain artists I just think, I don't really care if they're friendly. I love the music. And, you know, there are other people who think, you're not Nina Simone. You don't have the right to be rude to me.
True.
Get lost.
There's a whole chapter in the book devoted to I'm a Celebrity, which has recently been on TV.
I've been watching it. I've been loving it. It's so weird watching it. It's so different from being in there.
Yeah.
And I've been laughing and almost forgot about it the minute I came out. Have you done it?
No.
Would you do it?
I say no, but probably.
If you do, call me and I'll give you.
Okay.
I'll literally explain what's going to happen and I'll get you through it.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, obviously, Ant and Dec make me laugh. They're very funny. And, you know, I've been watching it, but I absolutely forgot about being in there the minute I walked out.
So what are you up to at the moment? We know you got the new book out. You're in Panto, you mentioned earlier in the week.
I'm playing Captain Hook, and who knew?
Who would have thought Boy George would be in Panto?
I love this gig. Like, I went into it sort of not really knowing what I was doing. I was like, Panto, you know. But when the audience is in, first of all, Captain Hook is, you know, is a vile creature. And Peter Pan's adorable when he flies and everyone loves him. So watching the kids, totally, you know, I had to explain to a little 6-year-old girl the other day that I didn't hate Peter Pan. And I got a little hug off her in the end. But it's really nice to see the wonderment in kids' eyes when you're playing this role. It's amazing and really fun.
And then you're continuing your on-stage journey next year with something completely different. You're heading to Broadway.
I'm going to be playing Zidler in Moulin Rouge, who is basically Captain Hook with less hair. I mean, it's the same type of energy. You know, he's a ringmaster, you know, sort of, you know, he's good and bad. He's not an even guy. He's a real character. Those are the roles that are really fun to play.
Yeah.
You know, playing someone nice, boring.
Yeah. And you're in a movie with Diane Keaton as yourself.
I'm in a movie with Diane Keaton, Lulu, and Patricia Hodge, and I sing Carmen Chameleon. So I don't do anything except It's like, why am I in this movie? And I've just written a song for a new Matthew Vaughn movie with Gary Barlow. Yeah. So we've written a song for this new movie, and I'm actually going to meet them after this. What this sort of disco track that I kind of sort of wrote in the 80s.
Right.
It's something that I had.
I love your quote in the book when you say, the past is the past, the future is uncertain, but the present is fabulous.
Absolutely.
You really do seem genuinely happy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that happiness is a choice. You know, I mean, obviously, life throws things at you, you go through stuff. Not everybody, has an easy life, but when you do what I do and you get paid to do it, and, it's really nice to get to that point where you go, actually, this is a lot easier than I thought.
Whitney Houston, My Love Is Your Love, your last track. Why this?
Whitney Houston, obviously, amazing singer. I met her a few times. I did some Versace fashion shows and she was there, and it was just always amazing to see her, holding the show as she turns up in her ball gown, and I think Whitney was one of the last kind of real archetypal divas in a way. I think for me, she's someone, when she sang, you just heard all the pain. Like Amy Winehouse, you heard it. And this song, this is with, I think Wycliffe produced this, and I just love it. It's so cool, and it's just a great song. Again, it's hard to choose a Whitney song. Even the last album, there's tracks on there that just totally break my heart. But she was a very emotional singer.
My Love Is Your Love, Whitney Houston. Boy George, thank you very much.
Thank you.